Live united.
Live united.
Live united.
Live united.
Live united.
Live united.
Vivimos juntos.
We live united.
We live united. I live united.
Welcome to Live United. I'm your host, Milton Little. Today we're going to spend some time talking about a group of people who are often overlooked. Nationwide, there are currently 5.5 million individuals between the ages of 16 and 24 who are neither in school nor participating in the labor market. These individuals are called Opportunity Youth. And the name Opportunity Youth invokes a sense of optimism these people have for finding a pathway to an economic stability. And it serves as a reminder that investing in their futures means immense opportunity, not only for employers, not only for those young people, but for the nation as a whole. A young person's detachment from both the labor market and their educational opportunities is an indicator that he or she may often lack the necessary support during a pivotal time in their life, and that's the transition from adolescence to adulthood. And how young people fare during this important time in their lives is often a key indicator of the overall community's well-being. Joining me today for a deeper dive on these issues are Tricia Crossman. She's United Way of Greater Atlanta's Senior Director of Youth Development, and Katrina Mitchell, Director of Strategic Partnerships for the Georgia Department of Family and Children Services. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
So let's start off with some definitions, Tricia, because most of the audience probably has not heard of Opportunity Youth. So say a little bit more about what it is and how young people fall into that category.
Sure. So as you mentioned, Opportunity Youth really are that age group between 16 and 24 years old who are disconnected. They're not in school, they're not working. And when we really look at who Opportunity Youth are, there really isn't a typical profile, right? So Opportunity Youth really fall into a lot of different categories. So some is that young person who really struggled in school, academically or behaviorally, and eventually dropped out of school because there just weren't the adequate supports and resources to keep them on track and keep them engaged in school and learning. But Opportunity Youth is also that young person who may have even graduated high school, but don't have the resources to go on to college, to get that post-secondary education that is so critical given our changing economy. But Opportunity Youth are also a large segment, are young people who through no fault of their own have grown up in situations where there was either abuse and neglect and may have ended up in the foster care system, and the barriers to their path to success are fraught with many obstacles. It's that young person who is from a family where they've struggled with homelessness and they've never been able to maintain a school environment for them to stay engaged. And it's also those young people who may have made a couple mistakes and got involved in the juvenile justice system, but as they tried to get back on track, there were so many obstacles for them to be able to do that. So Opportunity Youth encompasses all of those young people.
It's a wide variety of issues that sort of take people there.
Absolutely.
Are there racial or rural, suburban sort of overlays to this?
You know, Opportunity Youth are all over our state, in every community. We do know that young people who grow up in poverty are going to be facing additional obstacles that make them more likely to end up disconnected. But when we look at even the numbers, we know that there are over 200,000 Opportunity Youth in Georgia. And our best estimates are that about a third of those are in our metro Atlanta area. So they're everywhere.
200,000 kids, not in school, not in the labor market. Mm-hmm. Katrina, you know a lot about foster care. Why are kids in foster care particularly vulnerable to falling into this trap of Opportunity Youth?
Sure. Well, you know, partly I should give you a sense of what our foster care system looks like today.
Sure.
And that is that we have rising numbers, up to 12,000 children in care across the state, and those numbers continue to increase. A large population of those are young people from 6 years old all the way up to high school. And as they transition out of care, they are left with not necessarily being adopted, not having a foster home, a home to call their own. And that really gives them, makes them vulnerable to not being connected to those resources. So if they are struggling around graduation, we actually find that we have a really poor graduation rate of those kids in care. Some of it is because they've moved several times and so they haven't had the educational stability. A lot of it is because our kids experience trauma, and that can be that child abuse and neglect that Tricia talked about, but it can also be the trauma of living in communities where they see poverty every single day, they see mass incarceration every single day, and so those things add to why it makes them very vulnerable. You know, as they connect to systems, if they're not in school and they're not working, they're not contributing to the economic engine, they don't have a social support system, that is a mentor, an adult they can call on when they're in need of $20 to get a cab to be able to go to the movies, or they don't have the resources to have a brand new pair of shoes or a brand new outfit to wear for a job interview, it leaves them very vulnerable. And so our young people, you know, we have up to thousands of young people who transition out of care every year, and we're often thinking about how to support them. A state agency can do part of that, but we also know that we have to partner with community-based organizations. We can't do this by our own because in some cases we may not know where they are. If they've transitioned out of their system, there's no way for us to connect to them. So they might show up in homeless shelters. They might show up at a local YMCA. They might show up at a shelter. And that really is when we want to depend on and support other organizations in thinking about how to really understand the needs of young people who've been in foster care, many of them for a very long part of their childhood, which means that they've moved several times and have a lot of instability that's important, and that trauma affects the brain development and affects how they interact with community partners and interact with members of the community that want to support them.
So let's not assume that everybody in the audience understands what this notion of people transitioning out of care means, because that's key to them falling into this trap. So what's it mean for somebody to sort of transition out of care? Is this a voluntary thing that happens?
Sure. So as a young person gets older, and by the time they've graduated from high school, they have the opportunity to additionally get continued resources. But our state actually does not allow for them to stay in care up until 21, where they can opt in and continue to get the financial benefits like health care, like stipends, like the resources to support them. You know, we're working on thinking about that. Other states have thought about that. But at a certain point, at a certain age, by the time you graduate from high school, we don't have to continue providing all those resources. And so that means that then they are left without some financial stability that really allows them to continue to be able to live on their own. We absolutely think about how to help them transition and thinking about how do you connect yourself to finding a place to live, going to school, going to work. But there's some young people who really want to disconnect from the foster care system and decide to try to live on their own. And that is obviously, we want to see people do that, but we also see that young people who stay connected to us for longer periods of time in their adulthood actually do much better because they have that support system that's really important for them to maintain as they get into adulthood.
Now, there's something called the Opportunity Youth Initiative that is a response to the challenges they face. Can you say a little bit about what that is, what's its history, and what's it trying to accomplish?
Sure. So I had an opportunity to really be a part of some of the national movement, both in my previous experience working in the philanthropic sector, and really getting to see that nationally people are starting to recognize that if this population of young people does not contribute to the economic engine of this country, we're missing something. We're really missing the vitality of this young people to be a part of the workforce. And so there were funders, there were local nonprofit organizations, policymakers who got together and said, we really want to raise this issue to a level that other people can really hang on to, and really so other states can get involved. And so it started as a national piece of work, but then it continued to be something that locally states and community organizations are working on together.
What can you add to that?
So I think it's really exciting as this initiative has developed. So the core group of this collaborative has actually just finished a strategic planning process, and they have built out their plan for the next 5 years. They have really put their stake in the ground to say, we need to raise awareness. People need to know about the needs and the strengths of this population of young people and the opportunities missed if we don't engage them. They really are going to be focused on bringing new stakeholders to the table. and leveraging those relationships to create new opportunities for this group of young people to get education and to get employment. We often talk about it as kind of thinking of like people being on a highway towards success, and there's all these reasons that take kids on the off-ramp of that highway, and we need throughout our communities to build new on-ramps to get them back engaged. And so this collaborative is ready to dive in, get the right people at the table, and start to build those on-ramps for Opportunity Youth to get back engaged completely in our community and be providing the great abilities and strengths that they can bring to our city and state.
So what are the types of partners that are in this collaborative?
So we have some great nonprofits who are doing direct work, doing job readiness. You'll hear from them later in this
show.
But we've got Goodwill and Year Up, and we've got the Annie Casey Foundation is involved, and we've got Georgia State and the African American Male Initiative connected with it. And one thing that we've got building this year is we're partnering with DFACS, and we've gotten the Metro Chamber to get engaged. We're going to be convening the business community together later this spring to talk about the needs around youth employment for young people, and particularly our more vulnerable young people, and really trying to begin to talk with the business community about what do they need to see in order to provide those employment opportunities. So that's going to be one thing that they're going to really lift up this year, is getting those folks at the table who will give those opportunities to these young people to thrive.
That's great. We've got probably about a minute left, so I'll ask you, just tell the audience, despite your optimism, what's going to happen? What do we face if we don't solve the problem for these Opportunity Youth? Quickly.
Yeah. I think inaction is going to have huge implications, right? We know that based on national numbers, we can estimate that it costs Georgia $3 billion a year in lost revenue and increased social services. And then we're losing out on what these young people could do in our community. We could have the next doctor who could cure cancer.
Sure.
We just haven't engaged them yet.
Gotcha.
I think also the drain on the social services. I mean, the increase that we see in children in foster care and the more young people we're serving really drains the ability for an agency to be able to support families who are at the most in need. So I think if we don't think about this population, we're missing out on the opportunity to really build the capacity of organizations to really serve families that are at the most in need.
We're going to have to end it there. Thank you, Tricia, Katrina, for all that you're doing to make a difference and for helping our audience understand the challenges facing these young people. And we'll be back in a second.
Hi, I'm Priya, and I'm the spokesperson for United Way. United Way helps make communities awesome, but do you know they have a lot of help? Well, now you do. United Way has a ton of help from people just like you. Oh, and me. People like us, I like to call communitarians, because we care a lot about our communities. For us, caring means doing something, and United Way helps turn all of our caring into a whole heck of a lot of doing. United Way is powered by awesome communitarians. You should totally join us. And hey, I know the best way in.
Welcome back to Live United. In this segment, we'll continue our discussion of Opportunity Youth with one of United Way of Greater Atlanta's dedicated partners, Goodwill of North Georgia. Representing them today is Jenny Taylor. She's the Senior Director of Career Services, and she's accompanied by Deshaquan Green. He's a program participant from their youth development program, College Career Catalyst. Thank you both so much for being here. Jenny, we'll start with you. We're going to talk about careers, but let's step back a minute. A lot of people are familiar with Goodwill. They know the stores, and there are so many of them and great stores. But tell them a little bit about what Goodwill is before you go into the career services aspects of that wonderful agency.
Absolutely, Milton. Thank you for having us today. Many people are familiar with Goodwill and may not know that we just celebrated our 90th birthday at Goodwill of North Georgia. And we still operate on some of the same premise, that what we're doing with our stores is creating an environment where people can donate goods, shoppers can come in and retrieve those goods for their homes or for their businesses, and those dollars are helping us to put people to work. It funds the mission at Goodwill of North Georgia, which is to put people to work. And over the last 90 years, we've done that first starting in the retail goods environment, but we've expanded far beyond that. This last fiscal year, we have 20,903 people just in North Georgia alone. And all across the country, millions of people have been benefited by the services of Goodwill and the great partnerships like the one we have with United Way of Greater Atlanta. You're just a little bit older than we are, but I think that we probably are one of the oldest partnerships in this state. So what we've done to go past that in career services is to help people in 15 different career pathways. So we are working not just in the retail sector, but in high demand careers for our state to help with workforce development. So that could be things like welding or hospitality or customer service, in general, good employment practices. And what we're focusing on today, I know, is Opportunity Youth. It's just one program among the many that we have at Goodwill. And what we're doing with Opportunity Youth is we are helping young people who may have been involved with the foster care system, who may have been involved with Department of Juvenile Justice, or if perhaps they just grew up in a low-income household or have dropped out of school. Some folks who are in school and in danger of dropping out. And what we're doing with those folks is helping them to stay in school, providing case management and supportive services. We're doing contextualized learning. So
what's that mean,
yeah, that's a
learning?
good question. So that means that when we teach a class on welding, for example, in a partnership with Kubota Manufacturing up in Hall County, Georgia, we are working with a local technical college who's doing dual enrollment with the high school system, with co-enrollment with Goodwill, and we're teaching welding as a trade. But at the same time, we're teaching soft skills to know what it means to be a good employee in a manufacturing environment or any kind of environment for that particular industry. And they're doing paid internships in that field so that what we teach in the classroom, they can practice and apply on the job. And what they're doing on the job, that we are also highlighting those things throughout the day in the classroom. And so we're moving youth towards self-sufficiency by helping them to stay in school, complete school, and go to work, and perhaps go into post-secondary as well. And we do that in 26 different high schools and 13 different locations all across North Georgia for both youth who are still in school or those who may have already dropped out of school.
So you must have seen some kind of success in all this work, particularly with these young people.
Yes, sir.
Tell a little bit about the kinds of successes you've been able to accomplish.
Absolutely. So with the help of United Way, with our community partners, with employers all across North Georgia, and the high schools and colleges that we partner with, 98% of the youth that we serve have stayed in school, if they're in school. 96% have graduated. And this is compared to very low rates for the youth that we're talking about generally. Of the youth who wanted to go to work, 100% either had a transitional job or competitive employment by the end of our program. And of those who went into competitive employment, 84% have retained that job for 90 days or longer.
What a great story. So let's hear from you, young man, Deshaquan. Tell us a little bit about your background and then how you found your way into the Catalyst program at Goodwill.
Before I came to Gwinnett County, which is the county I graduated from high school, I came from Forest Park, and then we moved to Gwinnett County, and I grew up at Meadow Creek High School. And senior year, out of nowhere, a representative from Goodwill came and introduced himself, and he taught us all kinds of cool things like SMART goals and the fundamentals of maintaining a home life and a business life outside of home. And it shot off from there. And the next semester, I went and my industry is filmmaking. So I met two mentors, but I mainly work with one of the mentors. And we went to an actual studio one time, and one of the people at the studio told me a very interesting level. He told me about gaffing tape and putting it on the ground and all the cool stuff about that. And he said that that's one of the fundamentals to having people in the profession like you. You know how to do the gaffing, and if you do it the right way, you do a great job. So
you're excited.
Yes.
So film is where you want to go.
Yes, totally. I want to be one of the leaders in the future in terms of filmmaking and sometimes animation.
I have no doubt about that, that you'll get there. So we're talking about young people who are neither in school nor working. I imagine you know some kids like that, perhaps some who were with you at Meadow Creek.
Yeah.
Say a little bit about what's the experience of kids who are sort of in that sort of place where they're not in school and not working. What's life like?
I would say that sometimes they may be bored or go out and do whatever they can to pass their time. I'm not sure if they ever like try to go back to working, but I'm pretty sure they would eventually get to that point. So.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. So where do you see yourself going next?
I'm going to transfer to Georgia Southern University
Okay.
after I graduate with my associates, and I'm going to, shoot on from there. After I graduate with my bachelor's, I plan to join the industry of filmmaking.
Well, I know you're going to make us all proud. Is he typical of the kinds of young people that you see who thrive in the program?
Definitely ones who thrive. Deshaquan really has demonstrated success. We're so proud of you.
Thank you.
Completing high school, going on to college in a demand industry in Georgia, the film industry. Yeah.
So say a little bit more about sort of the context for Opportunity Youth Program there and the partnership that you do have with United Way.
Right. So the partnership we have with United Way helps fund our college navigators and our case managers to be embedded in the high schools and embedded in community partners and technical colleges to help youth with all of those issues that might cause them to drop out or to not return to school.
So a navigator would do what?
So there's a lot of red tape with going to college. I don't know if you remember your college
sure.
process. It's daunting even for those of us who have support
Sure.
and who have parents who went to college, because the number one indicator of going to college is having a parent who did. And so we're trying to break those generational cycles of poverty by getting adults, young people into college and on to their career pathway. And we make it as seamless and the path of least resistance as much as possible by creating co-enrollment. So if they're in high school, they're also in college and also working. And if they're at Goodwill, they're also in college and they're also working. And so there really isn't a big leap from one campus to another. All of us come together, all of the partners, to support the youth together.
So Deshaquan earlier talked about somebody who came to the school
Yes.
to talk about
Yes.
this. If you had a magic wand and you can wave it,
Right.
that would have some solutions to this challenge of Opportunity Youth, what would that magic wand bring to our community in the way of resources, programs, partnerships?
There's really three things
Okay.
that we would like to see more of. So we learned through this process 7 years ago when we started that one of the primary reasons that youth drop out, particularly coming from the kinds of situations that we're talking about for Opportunity Youth, is they're making a decision between supporting themselves and their family or going to school. And so paid internships and employers who might want to take a chance with a young person and all the energy they bring to sponsor paid internships to strengthen that ability to stay in school and learn about that industry. That's one, more paid internships. Two, more people to help us in the school systems. Teachers, as you know, have so much on their plates to just do the academics that it takes organizations like ours to bring resources. And it takes all of us in the community, business leaders, community leaders, to come into the schools and to bring youth back into the schools. That's my second. Be involved with your schools. Goodwill can be a catalyst for that. Contact us. And the third is just more dollars. More dollars to support programs that are successful, that have outcomes, and that really can demonstrate impact through partnership.
That's fabulous. Deshaquan, if you could sort of wave a magic wand, what would you make happen for more young people like you?
I would definitely try to get them to go the educational route, because if you learn as much as you can, it would be you have amazing experiences with your professors, with your teachers, and you can get involved. And I want everybody to learn a lot more.
Well, that's fabulous. So I'll close with you, Jenny.
Yes.
The notion of Opportunity Youth connotes optimism. We've got a young man here who makes both of us feel optimistic. Can you say a little bit something to the community about what we ought to be doing to make sure more kids can be like Deshaquan?
Absolutely. Together, our organizations have figured out what works. And so really it's a simple solution. Donate your dollars to United Way, donate your stuff to Goodwill, and together we can help more young men like this one to be successful in life.
Doesn't get better than that. Jenny, thanks so much. Deshaquan, thank you for being here. You are going to make us all proud.
Thank you.
Whether it's The Walking Dead or any of these movies that show up here in Georgia, I look forward to you doing more than just putting tape on the ground. I look forward to you doing everything you can in front of the camera and behind the camera. And say hello to all of our friends at Goodwill, an amazing partner, doing great work, not only for Opportunity Youth, but all across the spectrum of people in Atlanta and North Georgia who struggle trying to make a difference. And remind all of those folks who go to the stores and drop stuff off, you're doing much more than getting a good bargain. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Deshaquan, for being here. You guys were great. Opportunity Youth represents so many significant aspects of our work, from the value of early intervention to the dangers posed when supports aren't in place for those who need them. Imagine yourself being a young adult who could not complete your high school education due to issues beyond your control, such as poverty or a lack of familial stability, or even a health challenge. With every high school dropout, we lose a future doctor, a teacher, a business leader, even a scientist. And these capable young adults miss out on chances to pursue their goals and their dreams. And that poses an important question for all of us. How much do we have to gain locally and globally by investing in these young people? To date, over 1,700 Opportunity Youth just in Greater Atlanta have been reconnected to education and employment. And these pathways through our collaborative approaches have really made a difference for each one of them. And to further our goals, we need more opportunities for young people in our community, such as job readiness training programs and internships and dual enrollment programs and community support. These opportunities ensure that young adults have the chance to become productive and civically engaged adults. And most important, through United Way of Greater Atlanta's Impact Fund, we can strategically invest in programs and community resources that will support Opportunity Youth. United Way of Greater Atlanta will continue engaging the business, government, and nonprofit communities in highlighting the importance of youth development. Together, we can ensure that youth all across the community have the opportunity to succeed, and not only that, are on a path to be successful. Thank you all. We'll see you next time.